I want to thank all of you for stepping up into this role. This is clearly, it's not an easy thing. A lot of this is going to be volunteer work. Putting the union first when you can. Again, we know you have jobs. We know you have, this is a volunteer type thing, especially in the sense of, doing volunteering for political campaigns. Due to FEC rules, we cannot, I just want to start off right there. We can't pay you to go, knock doors for Kamala Harris, and Tim Walz. That would be an in-kind contribution, and that's what our MNPL side of the world is for. This is really just going to be about doing, again, around the periphery when you can, having some time, talking to your members about the election, hearing them out, getting the, sense of how they feel about things, but also, getting our message out there. Why is our union endorsing Kamala Harris and Tim Walz? As you guys are perhaps familiar with, for my last email, the IEM voted pretty affirmatively. I think Scooter, you were there. Josh, you were probably in there. Eric, you were in the room. Ramon, very, very affirmatively at the Machinist Convention, with all 1,500 delegates there to endorse Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. The reason we were getting a little bit late in starting this whole thing has been exactly that, though. We had one guy, Biden, step down off the ticket. And so that threw a lot of labor's campaigns into the fritz. But jumping right into things, and again, I want to say thank you guys for hopping on, taking the time, and pushing our union's message this fall. It's extremely important, as I'll get into, that Kamala Harris wins out for us. This is really, railroaders, more than most, if not all, working people, have a vested interest in a Democrat being in the White House. It's just the way it is. We have the NMB, and as I'll get into, that leverage point completely goes away when a Republican occupies the White House. So let me start off by sharing my screen. And getting the PowerPoint rolling here. Can you guys all see this? Just give me a nods. We're good? Okay. So this is kind of what long-term we're really hoping that the local legislative rep position will look like outside of just this fall campaign. We are not just trying to have this just be in the fall. We want this to be a year-round perennial thing to help us engage better with the membership, help you all engage better with us, your paid lobbyists in DC. This is what we do, and the more informed we are, the better we will be at our jobs. So what do we envision this? Eyes and ears on what's going on state, locally, and specific things to your lodge. We need to know that stuff. We need to know what our members are saying, how they're experiencing, different rules, regulations, et cetera. Amtrak funding, commuter rail funding. What are you hearing? Are they cutting this, that, or the other thing? Sorry, I got to admit somebody. Because they're saying they don't have enough funding in this particular issue. We want you to be able to liaise with our department, specifically on political and legislative issues. And we also, this goes both ways. When we talk to you guys and tell you what's going on, don't just sit on that information. We are hoping, and it would be beneficial to you all and our members, for you to convey that information directly to them, so that they hear from somebody they better know, rather than this amorphous blob of a person in DC that they've never seen before. What is going on? And lastly, what we're here to talk about today, volunteering for campaigns when we have them. And again, this is volunteer. It's whatever capacity you can. A lot of this is going to be virtual phone banking, canvassing, really whatever you can put the time in. But we will get into the various ways in which you can get yourself and your members plugged in later on in the show. Why is TCU supporting Harris Walls? It's a pretty easy choice. One's pro-union, the other isn't. We are a union. Harris has absolutely been, part of the most pro-labor administration in history. And specifically for our industry, $66 billion in passenger rail. That is the most that has ever been spent. That is more than all the money that has been spent on Amtrak to date combined. One single bill that is going to rewrite the history books, and it's going to rewrite the membership for our union. New jobs will be opening up as we grow and get bigger. We'll be able to demand more at the bargaining table, just on the passenger rail side. 90% of freight rail workers now have paid sick leave. Why? Well, a big reason was Pete Buttigieg kept calling every railroad, every Class 1 CEO for about a year and, beating them up over not having paid sick leave. And when those things start to, when there are other issues before the federal government start to be getting held up, well, they're going to know why, right? So it's all about leverage. It's having friends in the White House, in the administration, exerting that leverage to get us the things that we need, like paid sick leave for our members. Biden, Harris, they supported striking workers. They walked picket lines. That is a historic thing in and of itself. Nobody has ever done that before. And meanwhile, you guys know where the other guy was, but I'll get to that in a minute. Kamala Harris, an original co-sponsor of the PRO Act, the Protecting the Right to Organize Act, during her time as a senator. The PRO Act, for those of you who aren't super familiar, is the big, goalpost rewrite of labor law. As many of you know, on the local level, who have tried to actually go and do organizing, or will in particular down in Florida, living in a right to work state in a NLRA property, it is hard. It is excruciatingly hard to go and organize workers. And it doesn't actually make sense for a union at the end of the day if you can organize all these people and then none of them decide to pay dues because it's right to work, right? Like, all of this stuff is awful for the overall labor movement. And that's why we have seen a complete drop. The PRO Act, is a huge thing. The fact that she, is a major co-sponsor of it was super helpful. She spent a lot of time as a prosecutor before that, before her time in the Senate, cracking down on corporate greed and wage theft. Wage theft is still an issue for us to this day, unfortunately. Why we can't support Trump? Look, he's got a really long record of being anti-union and anti-worker. It's pretty much evident everywhere. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the big tax cut bill, that gave $2 trillion essentially in tax cuts, mostly to the rich and corporations. Folks got a little bit here. We got some big checks, but if you look at how that bill was written, all of the tax cuts for working people gradually fade away over time. All of the corporate and rich tax breaks, oh, those were permanent. I mean, you just have to read the freaking thing to know which side of the aisle Donald Trump and his folks were sitting on. He refused to walk the picket line. Instead, if you guys recall, during the UAW strikes, the big UAW strikes, he went to a non-union auto parts facility and made a whole speech and had, in my estimation, probably paid actors holding up union workers for Trump, auto workers for Trump, And I think it was in the Detroit Free Press, went and interviewed all these people. Not a single one of them holding up those signs were union workers or auto workers. That should tell you a lot about what kind of guy he is.
I'm not even talking about top level people. I'm talking about, you go a little bit, all of a sudden 20 years is up and now you're saying, man, it's a lot of money. I'm sitting behind my desk signing these checks.
It, right?
They expect
December rolls around and I think Don's going to be good to me.
Neil, it's the same thing with the unions.
That's right.
They get their little 5%. They get another 2%. They get another 3%, 4%. Then all of a sudden they're making more money than the people that own the company. I'm not even talking.
What did he actually do in office? Well, not a lot for us. He did a lot to really hurt us. He tried to completely gut Amtrak numerous times, cut public transit funding, which includes commuter rail. He appointed a former railroad CEO, Ron Vittori, as many of you guys know. He never saw a waiver, a safety waiver, that he didn't want to rubber stamp. And those waivers were just authorizations for the class ones to just cut jobs. And in the best way I can summarize a lot of this is everything the railroads wanted, they got. Labor, we got absolutely nothing. I know, I was in the room talking to me, at least he actually sat down and talked to us, but every single time he talked to us, he was like, nothing I can do. Nothing I can do for you. All the Carmen issues, all the safety issues, nothing. This is a video that the Bernie Sanders folks put out. Regardless of how you feel about Bernie, this is a pretty good summation of Trump's labor record.
President Trump spent 4 years in office, distinguishing himself as the most anti-union president of the last 3 decades.
The man stands against everything that working class people stand for, that organized labor stands for.
When Donald Trump was president of the United States, his labor department prevented 8.2 million workers from receiving overtime pay by lowering the overtime threshold that the Obama administration established.
When you look at the two candidates on our end, Joe Biden has a history of betting on the American worker, standing with the American worker, just as he did in our strike this year. When Donald Trump was president, GM was on strike for 40 days. Donald Trump was AWOL. He never said a word, never did a thing.
He appointed Eugene Scalia, one of the nation's top anti-union lawyers, to be his Secretary of Labor.
This is a guy who built his career representing unscrupulous employers while fighting against worker health and safety protections, retirement security, and collective bargaining rights.
Under Trump's administration, the National Labor Relations Board implemented sweeping new rules that made it harder for workers to form unions.
Trump appointed a notorious union buster, Peter Robb, as the general counsel of the National Labor Relations Board.
Trump packed the courts with anti-labor judges, people like Thomas Farr, who spent his career bringing cases before the courts to weaken unions. President Trump made it harder for workers to earn overtime, and he gutted the federal agency in charge of workplace safety.
Trump's NLRB quickly moved on every item on the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's top 10 corporate interest wish list, including making it far more difficult for workers and union organizers to communicate, giving employers the ability to gerrymander union elections by dictating bargaining units, allowing employers to fire workers in retaliation for union activity, obstructing workers' right to fair union elections by adopting union election rules that put roadblocks in the process, and limiting worker coverage under the law by allowing worker misclassification and limiting employer liability through joint employer rulemaking.
When it comes to organized labor, I can't fathom any union would ever stand for Donald Trump.
In short, can you guys see me? There we go. You guys see my shirt? No. I got the Trump is a scab shirt. That's what we're going up against, guys. Let me reshare my screen really quick. All right, we're back. You guys see this? The other issue, the other big thing look, if you don't even believe, what Trump did in the first few years was enough or was awful enough, all you have to do is look at Project 2025, and I don't care what he says. His fingerprints are all over it. His closest advisors wrote the thing. He's on video praising the authors, saying, "Oh, this is so great. This is going to be." I mean, it's utterly insane. And now he's trying to walk back and distance himself from it. But it's understandable to a certain extent because it's freaking terrible. The safety rules just for railroaders here. Two-person crew gone. Emergency breathing apparatus requirements gone. Loopholes allowing companies to avoid worker protections, legal for employers to voluntarily recognize unions, et cetera, et cetera. But I want to take this direct quote from it. And we have Carmen on the call? Quite a few, I think, right? I know at least got a few. Their plan is to put in place this rulemaking to essentially allow huge 1,000-mile extensions on brake inspections and maintenance inspections, simply for taking air brake slips and moving them from paper to electronic. How that affects the health of a rail car is absolutely beyond me. Literally taking something from paper to electronic. But that's what we're talking about, guys. These things matter. Why? As I say right at the end of my little note, this would decimate Carmen jobs. An additional 1,000 miles on these inspection limits. I mean, not only are the trains not going to be safe, sayonara to a bunch of Carmen rolls. So, state of the race. Where are we today? It's always useful a little bit to look at the, national polling average. And this is, we've got Harris up 3, and that's consolidating a bunch of polls. But if you really look down at the battleground states, this thing is really, really neck and neck. It could go either way. My gut feeling is it's going to come down to Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin again. But I do think I'm encouraged by some of the polling out of North Carolina. I think we got a really good shot there, and I even think we have an outside shot at Georgia. Regardless, we have to do what we're doing here today is talking about doing our part to try to make sure that these things, have that we have the best chance to win. Connor, do you want to talk a little bit about some of these slides? I want to give you a chance to hop in.
Yeah, sure. So just like Dave said, the race is really going to come down to the battleground states. That's kind of what this graphic here shows, which is why we really need everyone's support to kind of do our part and mobilize our members, other union members when necessary, to really just get out and vote for Kamala Harris. There's really a path to 270 for either candidate through, I think, 3 battleground states. There's some combination that each one is targeting. I think both are targeting Pennsylvania. I think Trump is targeting North Carolina and Georgia. Harris, I think, is targeting Wisconsin and Michigan. It really is just gonna be very, very close. Dave, do you want to go to the next slide?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we get to our role in the election, our role being labor's role. Kind of because of the data and evidence that Dave just went through on both candidates, labor does overwhelmingly support Harris, especially in the battleground states. I think these average out. I think the numbers, unfortunately, on the next slide, but I think the average of favorability is Kamala has an 8% favorability rating amongst union members across all the battleground states. And I think Trump and Vance are at like -7. So that's huge. Like when you look at how close all these battleground states are, what this means is that all of the elections in every battleground state could come down to the labor vote, depending on how well our members turn out.
Yeah, and just to point something out really quick, the favorability among union members specifically. This is not broader
Mhm.
polling, labor statewide. This is just looking at union members, and I'm not sure if households are included. Um, and so we hear a lot about working class folks in Ohio and Pennsylvania. Um, and you can kind of see some of that, the -4 and the -5, but I don't want you guys to really pay that close of an attention to the broader numbers. The point is, in really talking about this, is that we need to eat in to the yellow, the gray there, and even into some of the red if we can. The higher the margin that we drive it up, the better chance we have of winning that state overall. And so we're trying to wrap your head around really targeting, this is what we're doing. We're looking at just union members when we're talking about folding into the broader labor campaign. Messaging overall. These messages, what you're looking up here at is based on polling and studies done by the AFL. We pay experts to go out and figure out what actually hits home with our members. And again, this is labor movement wide, so grain of salt when you're talking about just TCU specifically. But this slide kind of shows you some of the best messages, top left, in terms of supporting Harris, or the strongest right across the top, right? These are the most convincing. And the weakest are down below, down at the bottom. So what do we want to do, right? We want to focus on that the strongest messages, or the top two, I guess, on the pro-Harris and anti-Trump. Let's really not get into immigration. In fact, opening up that conversation when you're talking to folks often leads you down a path that you don't want to go down. Right to work issues, Social Security cuts, Project 2025, the overtime stuff in particular. Now, again, as you saw in that video earlier, Trump rolled back overtime protections he rolled back the rule that was going to go into place in the Obama era. Biden put it back in with that and then some. Again, all the union busting stuff in Project 2025, the specific Carmen issues in Project 2025, versus, Harris talking about reproductive rights, especially, for female members, that's so important for them. Expanding apprenticeships, that's going to be a little bit of a lesser talking point for us, but walking the picket lines, showing that solidarity with us, I think is going to be a huge thing for us. Now, this is when we're going to start talking about what we're going to be doing here. Now, I don't know, I can't see all, your faces down there where everybody is from, but first and foremost, we were going to be trying to fold into the AFL-CIO's broader political campaign, the Labor 2024 campaign. That is going to be visible right here at mobilize.us/AFL-CIO. Oops. Which I am going to pull up for you briefly. Can you guys see this? Yeah. Okay. So this is the website, mobilize.us/AFL-CIO. This is kind of your one-stop shop for all of the various labor votes campaigns events, whether it's phone banking, remote phone banking, in-person phone banking, door knocking and canvassing, worksite canvassing sometimes. But a great tool is going to be right here on the map. And you can see all across the country in various spots, you're going to have different, items going on. So Scooter, what we got here? Norfolk Saturday labor to labor canvas, 9 a.m. That's this weekend, buddy. You click on that, you can enter in your information, but also, Scooter, if you have folks you're working with who can take some time of their own, many hands, light work, right? We show up, you get materials, and you just talk directly to other union members, not necessarily railroaders, but other union members inside the AFL-CIO network. All across the country, there are going to be events like that popping up. Oh,
Hey, Dave.
Yes, sir.
Could you also go through an example for some of the virtual stuff for a lot of the folks who aren't in states that the AFL has ground operations in? Because I think that could also be a good option too, especially timing wise for folks to volunteer for.
Yep. So here's a phone bank. Now you can see these two right here. Since they don't say virtual, they're not going to be virtual. Down here, virtual. That means you'll be able to sit at home with your laptop and your cell phone, and they will be able to walk you through the software that will give you just, folks to call, and you're just helping, you're doing a little bit of persuasion likely. But as the election gets closer in the last two final weeks, that persuasion stops and everybody starts folding over into get out the vote effort. So you're just calling folks that are, from independents on to onto the left, which kind of I will get to the next thing, and how we identify those folks. But that's how you guys can find virtual phone banking all across the country. You can sort using these filters. Personally, if you don't have that much time, including travel, phone banking is certainly an option. It's a bit easier time-wise. I don't find it personally to be as rewarding or as fun, going out there and having face-to-face conversations with folks. I've always had a lot more fun doing that. It's also more effective. But any time that you guys can spend, donating your time to this and getting, also crucially, recruiting folks for this stuff. Oh man, that's going to be super helpful. Again, many hands, light work, that type of thing.
If you all know anyone in your locals, I'm sure you all know folks who are very politically motivated, very politically charged. Maybe why you were appointed to this. Please feel free to share this link specifically with a lot of them, because this is a really great landing spot for people to figure out what works for them, what their level of commitment can be, whether it's just an hour phone banking a week, or if they want to actually go to Canvas and door knock. So please try really hard to recruit other members. Just share this around with anybody in your local who you think might be interested in volunteering.
Right on. Oh, Teresa coming right in. So the other thing that we have access to is something called the Labor Action Network. I can't really see all you guys, but has anybody here done work on political campaigns at all? Josh,
Yeah.
So are you guys familiar with NGP Van? So that is it's the underlying software that the Democrats actually utilize. Both parties have access to their own versions, but it's a voter software. It utilizes kind of a lot of big data, and it's pretty useful, especially for us in these situations, to be able to pull lists of our members by, state and by local, and then even sort them down to how were they're predicted to vote based on, I mean, it's kind of, it's a little bit creepy at times, but it utilizes some of the big data that's out there. For example, if you're subscriber to Guns and Bullets magazine, then your score is going to go a little bit to the right. If you subscribe to Cat Lady Monthly, it's probably going to go a little bit to the left. It's really like that kind of deep divey data stuff. And I can show you guys that right here. Can you guys see this still? Okay.
It's a little small. Can you maybe make it full size there, Dave, or zoom in a little bit? It's a little bit better, yeah.
Is that better?
Yep, much better.
Okay. That just kind of zooms in. Let me try that. All right. That good? We may decide at some point to have some of you guys utilize this program directly. It is a bit of a pain in the ass to get you logins. And part of the delay in having this call also is tied to getting our file uploaded. But this is a list I cut. So right now we're in the AFL-CIO's Pennsylvania file, and I already went and pulled our list of TCU members just in Pennsylvania, 1,668. And let's jump into, and this is all, you can pull all these folks. And it has kind of like not how you voted, but if you voted in certain things. So let's, Kelvin's not on. Is somebody here from Lodge 878 in Philly? Anybody? No? Well, Kelvin Jackson, he's our local chair out there. So I can pull up Kelvin's, this is Kelvin's profile. So when we're cutting turf for you, quote unquote, or pulling call sheets for you, if you'd like, this is the data that it's going to be relying upon. So again, popping down in the membership tab, you can see the international is the machinist file because they're the owner of our parent file. But the local is T878. So that's TCU 878. We'll give you, various things, but also give you, importantly, polling information, like where their polling locations are, known or thought to be their phone numbers. Geez, I think he has 5 different phone numbers. Important for us are these things, which are the scores that I was kind of talking about. And we can talk to you guys later about, all the various ones that are down here. But some of the key ones are going to be Harris support and vote propensity, as well as, union favorability is always helpful when you're talking to people on the phone. Knowing that they're a strong union supporter or likely to be that's at a 10. So 9 out of 10. I would hope he's our local chair. Again, these are old scores based on Biden and vote propensity, et cetera, et cetera. Actually, I don't know why 22 is up there. This should be, yeah. So 2024 vote propensity, that's likelihood to vote. 1 out of 100. Support for Harris, 97% likely to support Kamala Harris. So my point in showing you guys all of this is if we pop back to the full list, we can sort by your local in your state. And if you don't want to spend your time, calling a whole bunch of your members who are just going to hang up on you or tell you to go fuck yourself and you're trying to tell them to vote for Kamala, we can cut just the folks who are leaning a little bit left or are predicted to lean left. Now, I will say in the first round of calls, we would like to try to really reach out and in your opening bout of outreach, really try to reach out to some of those folks that are in the middle or even a little bit right leaning, and have those conversations about why a Biden-Harris or a Harris-Walz administration is going to be so much more beneficial for you as a railroader. Which reminds me of something I kind of skipped over earlier. And I wanted to make note of it because I think it's so important and telling about why this stuff is so important. The latest round of bargaining with the freights. There, as you guys know, we bargain nationally with the National Carriers Conference Committee, the NCCC. You know, our presidents, whether it's Artie and Don, et cetera, and the other union presidents, they all go and they have these, you know, periodic meetings and where they discuss issues, healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. This is just a few months ago, in June or May or April, something around then, when Biden was still on the ticket, and obviously looking pretty slow. And Trump was like pretty ahead in the polls. The Union Pacific guy at the time said to the whole table sitting there, I don't even know why the hell we're meeting. Trump's going to win. Now, why did he say that? He said that because he knows the leverage point at the end of the day in the Railway Labor Act is the President of the United States. They appoint the Presidential Emergency Board, and if it's a Republican, it's going to be 2-to-1 management. If it's a Democrat, it's going to be 2-to-1 labor. That is literally that is the difference between a 17% contract and a 24% contract. That's the difference. That's money in your pocket. That's the difference between getting raked over the coals on healthcare and having your healthcare completely protected, and not actually having chip in too much in the next contract in next year. I mean, these things really, really matter to the bottom line of our members. And I want folks to remember when you're talking to folks, when you're talking to your members, to try to keep that mentality. Don't allow yourselves to stray into all of the various issues that are, you know, whatever's hot on Twitter today. Don't do that. You're never going to get anybody anywhere. You, as a union representative, you're there to talk to them about how this is going to impact them, their bottom line, their pocketbook. So stick to those issues. I swear to God, you're going to have a much easier time, and you'll also be so much more successful. Because when you're a union member talking to a union member, they'll understand where you're coming from. So I just wanted to kind of make that note, you know, why it's so important that we have you guys as volunteers out here talking to our members directly, instead of folks, you know, from the campaigns themselves, you know, having those conversations. They don't know exactly where, you know, they're coming from. They, you know, could be some college grad, you know, with an MBA, and they have no idea what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck, what it's like to put 2 kids through college, you know, working, you know, double shifts and even triple shifts, right? But union members do. And that's why that communication level from a union member to a union member is so much more important, you know, that comes from us.
Can I just add real quick to that, Dave? I don't have the piece of data in front of me, but the AFL actually did some of that polling that we showed before. They found that union members, the one piece of information or source of information they trust the most is their union. It's not the media, it's not the political campaign, it's their fellow union members. It's getting a letter from the president giving them the facts. I mean, you know, to kind of encapsulate everything Dave was saying, I mean, think about it from your perspective. If you were getting a call from someone trying to tell you to vote for a specific candidate, would you be more likely to trust, you know, someone who has the same experiences that you all have, or just some random person from a campaign several states away? So just kind of think of it from that when you're doing all of your outreach.
Totally, Connor. We've seen year after year after year, proof of how important it is for union members to talk to union members, to have that source of information, come from folks that you work with, or at the very least, know where you're coming from. So on that note, popping back into the slides here, up here on the right hand side, is a draft flyer we were working on. We're going to probably tweak some things, throw in some Carmen specific flyers, maybe kind of tweak some things to be more freight centric, and have various versions. But I would like for you guys to put in, order requests for how many copies of these things would you like. This is just the initial flyer. We will have them mailed out to you guys ASAP for you to be able to hand out to your members, that whether it's at meetings or posting it up on the bulletin boards, et cetera. These things are very important to be able to actually hand someone a list of items that, like, this is why this Harris Wall is going to be better for us. So on that note, well, actually, before we get into all that, to reiterating what I think would be the best thing for everybody to do. If you are in a battleground state, I would really like it, and I think it'd be the best use of your time to fold into the labor campaigns themselves. I will reach out to you directly if you do live in one of those battleground states, and I can send you the campaign leads for labor in those states who can directly plug you in, and whoever you can get to volunteer with us. But if you are not in a battleground state, I would really like, first and foremost, spend some time talking to your members directly, your own members. We'll send you these flyers. We can't avoid politics, unfortunately. I wish you could, but it has way too much of an impact on our lives as railroad workers. It just does. And not just, sorry, Will here, not just railroaders, Disney folks too. Disney knows better than most how politics can affect their lives. They've had a governor trying to destroy much of what they're trying to do down there, simply because they spoke up about a social issue. I think that's just completely ridiculous and goes completely against the First Amendment, and that's why the Governor DeSantis is getting sued. But there it is. So anyway, at the end of the day, I think the best thing is, if you are in a battleground state, fold in a labor campaign. If you are not, spend some time first and foremost talking to your members directly, utilizing some of the materials that we can send you in the mail. And then as we get closer to election time in the final 2-3 weeks before the election, we can fold you into, we will be doing our own get out the vote remote phone banks just to TCU members, and any and all help in that effect would be great. If you can, sign up for a shift here or there and get folks to this is going to be just TCU to TCU. That is our plan for the fall. And